Hi guys, and welcome to the third episode of the Zelda vs. series. Today we're going to be a battle between Spirit Tracks and Majora's Mask. For the first round, we have creativity. Majora's Mask and Spirit Tracks both have a lot of creativity, where Spirit Tracks is more on the trains and characters, where Majora's Mask's creativity comes from its darker tone as well as its mask transformations. These are actually pretty similar when you compare them, but Majora's Mask doesn't have as much since it's based a lot off of Ocarina of Time, while Spirit Tracks is sort of like a completely new thing. So I think Spirit Tracks gets the point in this one. The next category we have is combat. Spirit Tracks combat is pretty strange due to it being on a DS, while Majora's Mask is fairly common, and it's pretty much the same as Ocarina of Time in general. But with the addition of the transformation masks, it makes Majora's Mask's combat style way better than Spirit Tracks. The next category we have is exploration. Both of these games have a fair amount of exploration, but there's not too much. So with games that like Breath of the Wild or Zelda 1. Majora's Mask has a big world that you can walk pretty much freely around for the most part. But there are some places that you have to beat certain points, and it's fairly linear. And Spirit Tracks, you can go over the world to different places pretty freely, but you have to use the train on designated tracks. So I think Majora's Mask gets another point in this category. The next category we have is items. There are actually a pretty good amount of items in Spirit Tracks. It's fairly similar to the items in Phantom Hourglass, but it's a little bit expanded and upgraded. However, as I mentioned before, the transformation masks in Majora's Mask are really interesting and add a lot to the gameplay. Plus, there are normal items in Majora's Mask as well, which gives Majora's Mask another definite win in this category. The next category we have up is enemies. This is a very interesting category, because the enemies in Spirit Tracks are kind of unusual. They're pretty basic for 2D, but this game sort of switches between 2D and 3D. And some of the enemies are fought using a train. In Majora's Mask, however, the enemies are pretty basic and simple, and practically the same as Ocarina of Time enemies, which is how Spirit Tracks gets the point in this one for having more creative enemies. Next up, we have dungeons. This should be fairly straightforward, because Spirit Tracks doesn't really have the best dungeons. It isn't really known for its dungeons. But Majora's Mask has some of the best dungeons the series has to offer, with Stone Tower Temple, the Snowhead Temple, the Forest Temple, and as well as the Water Temple. These are some really great dungeons that just put more out there than Spirit Tracks. Although Spirit Tracks dungeons aren't bad at all, but I think Majora's Mask definitely gets the point in this category. Our next category is characters. The characters in Majora's Mask and Spirit Tracks are about as far from each other as you can possibly be. Spirit Tracks characters are more happy and lighthearted, such as Zelda, and even the enemy Chancellor Cole, while the characters in Majora's Mask are really dark and have really deep backstories, which is how I think Majora's Mask's characters have a little bit of an edge to Spirit Tracks. Next up, we have story. While you may think this may be an easy win for Majora's Mask, Spirit Tracks actually has a pretty gripping story with some emotional moments. But despite that, I think Majora's Mask definitely has a better story with its dark atmosphere and its great storytelling, as well as its characters that I mentioned in the last category that really just add on to its story value. The next category we have up is emotion. Majora's Mask has some of the best emotion in the whole entire Zelda series. It's very dark, and as I mentioned, again, the characters are amazing and add a lot to the story and make you get emotions. But also, Spirit Tracks has really great emotions too. Not as extreme as Majora's Masks, but they're definitely still there, and they're pretty good. The next category we have is progression. While Majora's Mask has seemed to be beating Spirit Tracks in a lot of these categories, Spirit Tracks definitely has the upper hand in this one, due to its great progression from starting out a little easy to ending up pretty hard. While Majora's Mask sort of is hard the whole entire time, because it probably, when they came out with it, they assumed most of the people playing it had already played Ocarina of Time. So Spirit Tracks gets the win. The next category we have up is side content. Majora's Mask has a lot of side content, not as much as games like Breath of the Wild, but it does have a good amount. While Spirit Tracks doesn't really have too much to offer in the side content category, Majora's Mask also is home to one of the longest side quests, or not one of, it's the longest side quest in all of Zelda, the Kaife and Anju side quest. It's really long, and it gets you like 5 masks for completing all of it, which is pretty important if you're trying to 100% the game, or if you want an easier time of beating the final boss. But anyway, the point for this one goes to Majora's Mask. The next category we have up is music. The music is very important to the overall feel of the game and how much the player enjoys it. But Spirit Tracks has a wide variety of music, most of it being more upbeat, and a lot of it features woodwind instruments, such as flutes, while Majora's Mask uses a lot of choral notes, like from choirs, and more like dark tones and sad music. And it's sort of more emotional, like as I already, talked about. But it's a little more emotional, and it's sadder. So I think that gets the point in this one. So technically, Majora's Mask has already won this Zelda versus battle, but I would really appreciate it if you just kept watching, if you'd like to see how the future categories, what happens in them, and maybe Spirit Track have a comeback. And also, just only 10% of you guys watching are subscribed, so be sure that if you like this, be sure to tap the subscribe button, as well as thanks for the support, because I've just recently hit 30 subscribers, which I really appreciate that, and thanks for the support. Anyway, the next category we have is bosses. The bosses in Majora's Mask and Spirit Tracks are both really great. There isn't too much that stands out about them. Like Spirit Tracks bosses like Malladus and such, they're pretty well made for because of the DS. Majora's Mask also has some great bosses, but I think for this round that Spirit Tracks has a tiny bit of an edge, so they get the point in this round. The next category we have is art style. Majora's Mask doesn't really have an art style. It's pretty basic, just like Ocarina of Time. It does have one, but it's not really noticeable. It's not very unique. But Spirit Tracks' art style is really great. It's sort of like a Wind Waker, but it's also, there are a bunch of different like aspects, but it's really similar to Phantom Hourglasses, but it's a little more like lighthearted, sort of fitting the theme of Spirit Tracks. So it gets the point in. The next category we have is the world. Sort of just like, it's not like how big it is, like exploration. It's more like how much stuff is put into the world. It doesn't. But in this one, Majora's Mask, it has a really great world. A lot of stuff inside of it. It's really densely packed, sort of. And Spirit Tracks, it feels kind of barren and empty. Doesn't seem to be that much going on in the world. So I think Majora's Mask definitely gets the win in this category. The next category we have is difficulty. The difficulty is based off of how hard the game gets at its max hard, compared to its beginning and like its easiest part. So Majora's Mask, it ends up really hard. It's hard for most of the game, probably because it's most people, when they made it, probably they thought most people who play it would have already played Ocarina of Time, so they would have experience. Spirit Tracks is more beginner friendly, which is why that Majora's Mask is more difficulty, so it gets the point in this category. The next category we have is replay value. Is generally based off of the overall feel of the game and how much you want to play it again for the second or even third or fourth time. Spirit Tracks and Majora's Mask are both really great games, but I think Majora's Mask definitely has a win in this category, which is the last category. And so Majora's Mask overall has a win. Alright, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day. And if you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. And also, thanks again for 30 subscribers. See you next time.